Afternoon, everyone. Members, thank you for your attendance here today. To the City of Cape Town as well as the Department of Community Safety that is represented. And before I do the official list of delegates that are here today, I want to echo the Chief Whip's words, which he echoed earlier on, that we are still standing. So members, thank you for being here today as our first engagement post a grueling election. We can still work together in the spirit of fostering a safer Western Cape. We are here with the City of Cape Town, knowing that the City of Cape Town does a whole lot of work in terms of traffic enforcement and bylaw enforcement, but also a key role in crime prevention. As we know that the Premier has implemented a Western Cape safety plan that speaks to us reducing the murder rate, and fostering those relationships, working together is to the benefit of all the citizens here in the Western Cape. I am Regan Allen. Next to me is Mr. Wasim Matthews, our procedural officer, and to his further left is Mary Ann Burgess, who is our assistant procedural officer. And as chairperson, I will allow members to introduce themselves for the record before I go over to our delegates that are here in attendance as well. To our IT that is on standby, thank you so much for your attendance here. Members that is online, you will also note in the chat function, we will send a message in terms of translation services. We also have a number of the Department of Community Safety officials that is joining us online as well. So over to the members.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Wendy Philander.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and colleagues. Gillian Bosman.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Ferlin Christians.
Good afternoon, Chair, members. Mesuli Kama.
Good afternoon, Chair. Mireille Wenger. I'm standing in for Honourable Botha. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have, like Chief Whip indicated, received an apology from member Lorraine Botha, and the Chief Whip member Mireille Wenger is standing in for Lorraine Botha. We have also received apologies from the Executive Director in the City of Cape Town, Mr. Botto. However, we do know that the acting ED is here today, and I will allow the City of Cape Town to introduce themselves for the record and then over to the department. But I also note that HOD Pillay is online as well.
Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon to everybody. I'm Director Roberts. I'm representing Director Vincent Botto here as Executive Director acting.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Wayne Leroux. I'm the Chief of the Cape Town Metro Police.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Johan Brandt, and I'm assisting the department with the implementation of the safety plan, but HOD is also online.
Thank you so much. Members, in terms of the rules of engagement, I know it's been an election season, but I trust that we are all aware of the rules of engagement for hybrid sessions as well. In order to proceed, I will set the context that the purpose of the meeting today is to be briefed on the Cape Town Metropolitan Police Department on its annual police plan. These proceedings are open and are broadcast live via our YouTube channel for the WCPP, and I want to welcome each and every member of the resident stakeholders that are joining in on YouTube. Thank you so much for your attendance here today and for joining in and engaging and following the proceedings today. In order to proceed, I'm going to hand over directly, members, to the City of Cape Town in order to present. The presentation has been circulated to all members. It will also be flighted on MS Teams. And Mr. Wasim Matthews, are you able to indicate if you will be doing it or the city?
Yes, Chair, I can just get a cue from Chief Leroux, and then I'll change the slides.
Thank you so much. So without any further ado, it is now 1:07, and we will officially hand over to the City of Cape Town.
Thank you, Chair and honourable members. Good afternoon, goeiemiddag, mormeni. In line with Section 64C(g) of the South African Police Act, I'm compelled to submit an annual police plan every year that is presented. If Council's happy with the content of the plan, but most important, that this plan is presented to the Provincial Commissioner in the Western Cape, and I can proudly say that for the last 10 years or so, we've been receiving a acknowledgement or certificate for our, for the submission that is in line with the annual police plan to the South African Police Service. And for this year, the 26th of July, we received the plan from the Commissioner's office. So we are in line with what is expected from the Metro Police. Before I start the presentation, and if you just look at the overview of the presentation, this past year has been rather challenging for us, taking into account, with COVID and the various challenges that we had, that we couldn't really interact with the public. So there were certain processes that we had to adhere, and we had to put in place, and this was not the normal business that we normally would engage with the public and have our various meetings. But with all the challenges that was upon us, we managed to achieve what is expected from us. So on page 1 of the plan, if everybody could see that, the legislative mandate is within there's a 3-pronged approach. That's a traffic enforcement, the bylaw enforcement, and of course, crime prevention. All 3 of these mandates are encompassed with the department of our annual police plan, and it talks also about the accountability in terms of the indicators and targets that we are set out in the plan. But most important, it is a legislative requirement that the Cape Town MPD renders a 24-hour service. The integrated joint operations and coordinated approach, I think that is ultimately important when it comes to policing. No policing environment can work in a silo. They, with the current trends and patterns and the situation these days, this is the approach that we're looking at, the integrated approach. So the Metro Police, as a department within the City Directorate for Safety and Security, has and will adopt an integrated approach with regards to policing and enforcement in the city in order to render an equitable service for the residents. And together with the city's enforcement agencies and address the challenges that we currently have relating to crime prevention, traffic and bylaw enforcement, Chairperson, the proactive manner in order to achieve our mission and our vision, and most important, in order to create the community reassurance throughout the city. Now, there's various stakeholders. We could list a page of various stakeholders, but I just thought we'll just mention just a few role players that plays various important roles when it comes to external agencies. That's obviously the South African Police Services, Provincial Traffic, Home Affairs, neighbourhood municipalities, because we do sometimes render assistance when there's a call from their side, but also internal role players, and these are all a joint type of initiative when it comes to working smarter. This is in conjunction with joint operation, and I said, like, in order to achieve our common goals. Chair, on the human resources overview, this just gives an indication on the average amount of members dedicated per area. We've boots on the ground, we've got just over 565 operational police officials. This includes the command and control structure that is deployed across the city of Cape Town. Because we work on a 24-hour shift system, at any given time, because of the shift, we have 25% of our staff on duty. So it has a bit of an operational impact. And there's just some figures of the 2.461 kilometers and 103 suburbs. With the population, I think it should be just over 4 million, and the ratio is indicated there. Now, we also work very closely with our colleagues, which is the South African Police Services, where we render assistance. And that's close to 60 police stations across the area, the municipal area, and other external role players that deployed from within our city. Our human resources, that gives you a breakdown of the command and control, who's responsible. We've got the area director, and of course, the contact details and the amount of police station that person is responsible to interact. They have to interact with the police because this comes with a coordinated approach. And of course, this is This is part of their daily, weekly, monthly meetings in order to have one common goal. We've also have our specialized units, which is the CCTV camera response. This is under Director Barry Schiller. And of course, when the camera responds, the cameras itself, the technology, we've also got the unit that responds to these type of incidents. And we've got also a video unit that is utilized in order to, in order to work smarter. Our special operations on the right-hand side of the slide talks about the tactical response unit. They are responsible for various protest action, marches, strike, pickets, support, and of course they provide the support to our leading agencies, which most of the time is the South African Police Services. We've got the gang and drug task teams. These are also ongoing initiative operations, whether it's done from our side or also integrated approach. And they have joint operation with leading agencies and conducting also autonomous operations. We've got the K9 unit, which is our dog unit, the equestrians with our horseback patrols, because we use them as part of policing, whether it's in the CBDs or whether it's just day-to-day coming towards the festive season as part of our, the smarter way of working. The human resources gives you just a breakdown. I thought I'll just add in this in. What is our current breakdown of the civilian staff, the position profile, and towards the bottom right, you'll be able to see just a bit of a breakdown of the amount of staff, the demographics, and the total amount is just over 700 now, but it's in the region of 694, 700, because we just employed a few extra staff. So that is the breakdown of our command and control structure. But boots on the ground, we've got just over 565. That's just a short breakdown of our human resource of our demographics, or not demographic, of our command and control structure. We've got the acting executive director, Vincent Botto, our report team, and of course, with that, we've got the top structure management, we've got the area management, and of course, within our policing environment, we have, the command and control that reports to the area managers, who's ultimately responsible. We've got a deputy chief that is in charge, and she's responsible for the command and control for operations. I have one vacancy that's open still for the other, where it's more like internal investigations and things like that. But we're in the process of looking at filling that position long term. But otherwise, this just gives you a bit of a snapshot of our command structure. The finance and budget, this is just a breakdown of in line with, what's in line also with the Municipal Finance Management Act. I've got an operating budget of 667 million, and of course a capital budget of 86.502 million rand. That is in line with, accountability. This could be capital projects or operating, your day-to-day running of, of the Metro Police. This slide is very important because it gives you a breakdown of what is expected from the Metro Police, our demand and expectations. We know that, crime affects the quality of life of individuals, so we will try and be visible. We will try and work as closely with stakeholders and where we can render an equitable service. So our focus is about reducing crime, improving the safety. This gives a breakdown of the rapid response to emergency calls, high visibility patrols. I mentioned about traffic accidents. Those are things that we're also responsible. And most important is to be professional, efficient, and transparent. That's all aligned with the Botapela principles, building relationship to enhance the capability to fight crime and to adopt a Botapela principle approach, monitoring convictions of arrested person in drug-related cases, and of course, enhancing policing through technology and information gathering. One of the things that we are very proud of is also our rewards and recognition, where people come forward and they normally share information, where there seem to be problems, and of course, there's a reward and recognition policy in place. Chair, on this slide, we talk about our priority crimes. Here we ask, what is our priority crimes? We're looking at combating of alcohol and drugs related to offences, the combating of illegal firearms and ammunition, the gang-related criminal activities and violent crimes, crimes against women and children, and also traffic and bylaws. How we do this is the methodology Here we talk about the visible patrols, the checkpoints, the by-law operations focus on problematic areas, security at major events. We all know the type of events that's been around for the last couple of years, and it will slowly improve now. Major events in the mother city, and of course the popular tourist destination, our beaches and certain hotspots where visitors normally come frequent and come visit. Community policing and interactive policing. These are things that we focus on as very important in order to have the relationship with your community. The joint operation with South African Police Services and the other agencies. And why do we do it? Because we have a multifaceted analysis of, and that gives you a breakdown on how the hotspots, how we do our day-to-day policing. With that red circle, we call it the innovative policing enhancing methodology, but there's various tentacles attached. We talk about certain things like automatic number plate recognition, close CCTV. There was a previous one that we had was the gunshot detection. That is not on, we haven't renewed that contract, but this is the type of technology we can look at. Hotspot analysis, that's important. You need to know exactly the hotspot challenges. And of course, your contact emergency policing in line with our EPIC. The next slide talks about our indicators, which I mentioned. It just gives you a breakdown of the amount of indicators. There is about a total of 10 that is recorded there. It's the CCTV, it's the amount of the number of successful policing interventions, the number of crime-orientated operations, that's important to improve the safety. The next slide. If you want me to, I can unpack on each one if you want me to, or I can just speak about it. And number 4 talks about the traffic-orientated operations in high-risk areas to improve, obviously, the safety. We've got the targets that's set aside in order to achieve with our annual target. Where did we go wrong? What was the challenges in order to reduce or to improve? The number of by-law orientated operations during that financial year. Our target is given to us. What is our methodology in order to deal with these targets? Obviously, there's constant review, weekly reviews of these targets, working smarter. We know criminals don't just, they tend to move also with certain challenges in the area. So we have to also work smart in order to make sure that we are in line in order to deal with these challenges in particular areas. We got also the 80% response to protest actions. This is a very positive indicator for us, especially when it comes to Gatherings Act reported to the Metro Police. We got the attendance of events. I mentioned about the importance of the attendance of the events and in order to make the success for the city. The number of city-owned firearms. I am responsible for the firearms and ammunition verification, the audits, the visits for all 3 services. Just to give you an indication, there's close to 4,000 firearms within our within the city of Cape Town, and I'm responsible to make sure that everything is in place from the adherence to the South African with the Firearm Control Act to make sure proper processes in place. So it goes about accountability, the safe inspections, what's happening at home, after hours, the visits, the reports, of course, the investigation that's important. The percentage of inspected residential farms, that's also something that I touched on. The following slide talks about the drug and alcohol combating program. That's our gangsterism. This is accepted that the leading agency in terms of combating drugs and alcohol crimes remains with the South African Police. However, the city has a vital role to play in the supporting leading agencies. And as indicated in our IDP, in the Integrated Development Plan, the Safety and Security Directorate has stepped up its alcohol and drug enforcement operations with the introduction of successful saturation operations, which targets illegal liquor outlets, drug houses throughout the day. There's a different approach. It's not your normal type of operations. It's changing times, looking exactly when the problem happens, how we could maybe try to deal with these things. So it's a roving type of indicator. This. And what's important is also emerging concerns raised, particularly by the integrated justice cluster, with the conviction rates. Efforts will be made through the Watch and Brief program in order to quantify our conviction rate. The by-law enforcement and traffic policing, That's also part of our day-to-day operation. This talks about, just brief about the department will support law enforcement services, which is, also as part of within our directorate, with various enforcement initiatives during integrated joint operations. But they will also embark on autonomous operations to attain its goal. Now, the amount of law enforcement-based operations has become one of the department's performance indicators. Traffic policing is a zero-tolerance approach towards the general disregard for the rules and regulations. In particular, to prevent public transport, the industry will be adopted with a vigorous pursuit. We know the various challenges that's upon us, especially with the traffic management, and we try and work, very closely with the enforcement side, but we have to also take note that we have to work as a team with the traffic services. Now, one of the major challenges and constant complaint is it's, reckless driving, the inconsiderate driving that, on the day-to-day. So these are things that we focus on, especially on our freeways and, people coming to work and in order to have a safe passage. The amount of traffic-based operation has become one of the department's performance indicators. The technology on the next slide talks about EPIC. This is important when it comes to the emergency and policing incident command. This provides an integrated type of system for incident management, including call logging, dispatching, and we could say it's real-time situation awareness. The dashboard reporting and effective use of programs, and it's about using your resources more smarter, more effective, as close to the incident. It's similar to your 911 concept, where you have the nearest patrol vehicle that could maybe respond to a particular incident. Here we talk about the single integrated solution that allows for the incident call taking and dispatch of required resources, monitoring and measuring of emergency and response management incidents. The bottom paragraph talks about the introduction of electronic contravention phases and enable the issuing of traffic and bylaw warning notices. This will result to accurate geolocation, date, times, and offences with minimal or no defective notices, thereby reducing the number of cases not being processed due to error or omissions. And the last paragraph talks about this will also allow us for the effective analysis of the data, which will assist with operational education and corrective strategies. I mentioned about the crime mapping and gun detection technology. This is an initiative that's usually based on the official crime stats. And as a department, this does not have access to detailed and recent crime statistics. But with the platform, the EPIC platform, that allows us to use of alternative resources, such as the master service requests, in line with for multidisciplinary initiatives, and our service request for department initiative and information. There's a breakdown of information, the concept of people, objects, location, we call it the POL. And of course, when these gunshot detection technology, it remains an important analytic tool when it forms and provides for predictive policing stats used for crime prevention planning, aimed at addressing the shootings in a particular area. The CCTV, it's been with us for close to 20 years, 21 years. Crime is, of course, highly predictable in certain hotspots. And the city aims to address the challenge through the installation of, various CCTV installations across the city. It's a known fact that we have various cameras across the city. We have a total of 883 Metropolis, cameras. We also have the transport freeway cameras of 262. We have the My City cameras, license plate recognition cameras of 183. And of course, the private registered cameras of 609, bringing the total CCTV footprint to the city of Cape Town to 2,749. So we can see CCTV, Big Brother, it's of importance to us. We use it in line with our day-to-day operation. And of course, working with stakeholders, we also have a CCTV footprint where we identify with the interaction with the meetings with the police and various stakeholders, before a camera is installed. I think that's important. It's not about just installing a camera. It's about making sure that the camera is there for, for the best use. But with that, we have to take into account, we have to interact with stakeholders in order to work smarter for the community. The social crime initiatives, this is through intervention. We seek in order to empower the communities to deal with social issues, which leads to crime and address fears and the perception of unsafe environment. And I think this particular unit or things that we deal with, the interaction with the community, we've really seen the return of investment. It's building up trust, it's building up relationships, it's building up just getting to know who the community, what is their challenges. You'll be surprised, from the youth at risk to the communities. These are part of smarter policing. And it is envisaged that particular crime threats be addressed through these programs, which vary from domestic and gender violence to the prevention of substance abuse and youth involvement in crime, as well as child safety. Now, the last paragraph talks about this unit further aims to create sustainable communities in lieu of accepting responsibilities, partnership in crime prevention solutions. Chair, the last, or towards the end, the Special Operation Division. This is our unit that, there's a constant call for them in order to assist with the South African Police Services. The enhancement and the development of existing specialized units within our Metro Police remains a fundamental vision in our crime prevention strategy. Here we got the various units I mentioned: the K9, the Equestrian, Gang, Drug, and of course the Tactical Response Unit, which assists, with the South African Police. They support the POPs unit at protest actions across the city. There is also a breakdown that we also received on one or two occasions from some municipalities also the assistance where we were trying to render. Of course, permission is granted from the municipal manager in order to assist them. And the Cape Town Metro Police is, however, cognizant of the fact that these teams operate in support under the command of the POPs unit, which regard the National Instruction 4 of 2014 and in terms of the regulation of the Gatherings Act 205 of 1993. That's important. And of course, with the excellent working relationship with the police, it helps to maintain the two entities over the past 5 years. Chair, in conclusion, this legislation dictates to us that our department should focus on our legislative mandate, which I mentioned, the three-prong approach. These legislative mandates are achieved through the provision of our 24-hour service being maintained at the area level throughout our metropole. And our performance indicators also lend itself to the achievement of our mandated function. This includes the joint operations, the integrated soft border approaches, the joint operation, of course, and then, of course, the autonomous operation. And we accept that the fight against crime cannot be won by one single entity, which is could be the Metro Police, operating in isolation. Therefore, any value and importance to embracing partnership with various internal and stakeholders, players such as the police, other stakeholders and the community, including other agencies, is important to us. And in terms of our proactive crime prevention methodologies, the Cape Town Metropolitan Police places substantial emphasis on the broken window approach, thereby striving to progressively limit more serious crime. We also, I just thought I'll add on that, we have a traffic college, or we have a college within the Metro Police that has received good recognition over the last couple of years for the training that has been provided, various training that's been provided by this college, whether it's Metro Police, traffic officials, learnership, and also our cadet program. So we are very proud, and they've been recognized by the RTMC that they've done various visits, and they are happy that we have met the requirements. Chairperson and Honourable Ministers, this is just an overview of our annual police plan. And I'm glad to say that we have met the requirements in line with what's expected of us, and the certificate has been attached to our plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. And according to media statements, it follows a week of 201 arrests, where one arrest was particularly interesting, of a gentleman that had 4 cases against him and 1 for an attempted murder against a SAPS officer. And he was also arrested by Metro Police. So following the presentation that we have received, members, I am going to open up for a round of engagement, for questions, for any clarity, seeking points on what was presented. I also want to welcome Member Peter Marais, who has joined us here today. Members, I will also note online if I see any hands. I see 1 hand in the chamber. 2, if there's any member that is online, I will commence with those that is in the house. And if I can be indulged by commencing on my far left, Member Marais, Member Christians, the Chief Whip, and then Member Kama, in that order. You may proceed, and I will continue to monitor the hands online.
Thank you very much, and apologies for being late. I'm glad to be here because if I remember, when I was mayor in 2000, I introduced Metro Police in the Cape. And I had a fight with the national minister who thought it's a national function. And we won the fight. But now it's time for the Metropolitan Police to show they've got teeth. So I want to know to which extent do you enforce municipal bylaws? What bylaws is absent that would have made your task more easier? There's a lot of problems in the metro. One of them is land invasions. The city has got bylaws which zone land. I cannot build a church in a sports field. It's unlawful. I cannot build a business, a factory or a shop if it's zoned as residential. And then those bylaws should kick in, and no court can overrule us because the court is not a legislation. But in the absence of a bylaw that prohibits squatting on land zoned for something else, we should have a police force that can immediately implement the zoning regulations. Are there such bylaws that can punish me for occupying land for a different purpose to what it was zoned for, and quickly? Number 2, does the Metropolitan Police work 8 to 5, or are they on duty 24 hours? And if they're on duty 24 hours, are there sufficient police to cover all the hotspots? And then I would like to, sorry sir, is that sufficient? 30 seconds. Yeah. Right. Then I want to know, what is the coordination and cooperation between the Metropolitan Police and the SAP? How do they react to complaints by you? Because you cannot investigate crime and go take the people to court. That is the function of SAP. So how does that hamper your job in getting convictions? For now, I'll settle with that, sir.
In terms of the legislative mandate, but I will allow the chief to also then respond accordingly. Member Christians.
Thank you, Chair. The Metropolitan Police is very small compared to law enforcement. And the question is, with law enforcement getting more and more powers, we heard getting powers under the Criminal Procedure Act, I was a law enforcement officer many, many years ago, and we could only enforce bylaws. It's changed dramatically. So what makes the Metro Police different to law enforcement? Because we now hear the LEAP officers being employed and more powers given to them. Because if you're 565 operational police officers, and the Metro Police and the law enforcement is just under 4,000. Now you're sitting with, and I know your mandate, you're sitting with traffic. We have provincial traffic and we have city traffic, but now you also do traffic. But if you look at traffic, they can't do what you do. Your traffic is specific traffic offences. So I just want to hear from you, because your unit is so small and you're running a 24-hour service. So if you work out your 24-hour service you're working, you've got skeleton staff. You just don't have the resources. And the question also is law enforcement, because the last time we heard law enforcement worked office hours. Has that changed? To your hands, Metro Police working together. Law enforcement had office hours, but Metro Police had 24-hour service. If we can just understand that. And is there a need for Metro Police to exist with law enforcement being LEAP office being appointed? And the question to the MEC was, look, the province is giving money to the city to employ, and we are not just looking at looking at bylaws. We're looking at giving them the powers to do much more. So that is just a question, because I see your mandate and I see your powers, but I cannot understand 565 operational officers. For me, doesn't make sense. You have traffic and you still do traffic thing, and you have law enforcement that's almost got 4,000 in the city of Cape Town. It doesn't make sense. The last question, Chair, is, and it's just an interesting question. You had a deputy many years ago. You had a deputy chief that was a female. What happened to her? Because I just noticed she's no longer here on your organigram, because I think she did staying work. You know, the times that we had engagement with the Metro Police. I think that's all now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I see there's quite a lot of reference to high-risk areas. Could we get a bit more information on what a high-risk area is? How do you determine what a high-risk area is, please? And then I'd like to ask a question about high-risk city infrastructure. So the city's own infrastructure, does the Metro Police play a role in ensuring that that infrastructure is safeguarded? And then finally, if I may, a question of clarity on the indicators and targets for the 21-22 financial year under number 8, which is regarding firearm and ammunition. The last sentence reads, the Metropolitan Police is responsible for the firearm management of all firearm and ammunitions within the city of Cape Town. Is that within the Metro Police itself, or firearm and ammunitions within the broader city, as in all firearms across the city? So just to understand what kind of responsibility are you talking about in that particular indicator? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think let me welcome the presentation and thank this opportunity. My first question would have been asked by Member Christians in terms of the number that you have of the officers, and really a question that one comes to mind, because you know, in all these presentations, almost everyone is involved in the safety space talks about integrated approach and all these things, and I think even here we heard that today. But I think I share some of the frustrations that the colleague is having, and perhaps leads me to want to understand the relationship between the Metro Police and this LEAP program. as to what is the relationship there, even if you think of in terms of the legislative mandate, perhaps what is the difference between these two, even difference in training, and with that, can we also get a sense linked to the difference in training, if what is the comparison in salary? Because and I take this from the support we've been giving to the LEAP program as a province. Is there a difference in salary? And if that exists, do you have a challenge of officers wanting to leave the unit and join your LEAP program or any other unit, whether it's a city's traffic or what? And in this, because I think your ratio there, if you have you talk about one officer to 7,276, and build it to make sure that we achieve the target of making sure that we halve the murder rate in the given time. The other question, Chair, that I have for now, it's on slide 19, I think, where you talk about your CCTV cameras. Now, what I want, I think you just gave a number, but I missed the number that you gave because I wanted to understand what is that number of your CCTV cameras that you have in the metro, and or that you have access to, because I believe some cameras are a shared space. Now I want to understand those that we have access to, and in that, what is the number then that is in the high crime areas? How do we monitor if these cameras are actually working? It's not just a camera that is there which does not work most of the time. I saw in the other document that I saw here, but you didn't talk to, that has a camera overview and talks on the plan that was approved by the city for a rollout of your cameras. If you can talk more to that, and perhaps specifically on the issue of Krafontein and Delft, because Krafontein and Delft now are up there with Krafontein leading as a murder precinct. So I just want to understand your rollout in terms of that particular space. Thank you, Chair.
In terms of land invasions, Chief, are you able to give us an understanding of how many land invasions occurred during the last year, and Metro Police's engagement in that regard? I do sense that if we have a number of our Metro Police officers constantly engaging in land invasions, where they could have been helping in terms of crime prevention. And then secondly, do we have an average in your engagement with metropolitan cities across the country regarding their staff establishment? Do we have an estimation on the average size of Pretoria, for example, or Johannesburg or Durban, and how we would measure up in terms of the staff allocation in that regard? But then also in terms of the CCTV cameras, are you able to identify if there is certain areas that are harder hit in terms of theft and vandalism, and how that impacts the rollout of CCTV cameras? And do we have any cases that's currently before court where CCTV cameras were used as evidence, and if those evidence were then credible in terms of securing a conviction? But I want to know, Chief, in terms of the CCTV cameras, are we able to make it tamper-proof, or where criminals are basically unable? I know I'm reaching, but is that a possibility at all? And then We will have a second round of questions. I still see no hands online, so I'm going to give directly over to Chief as well as Director Roberts for replies to the questions.
Chair, thank you. Just with regarding to the land invasion issue, if you can just give me a minute, I'm just looking up the statistics, then I can provide you feedback with regarding to your approach in terms of the land invasions within the city, how we are coordinating it with the police and the current status with regarding to land invasions. And then while the chief is answering, I'll just get the stats quickly.
Chair, just coming back to Honourable Marais' first questions. The municipal bylaw, there is bylaws that, that is part of our legislative mandate, Minister. But obviously there's also a law enforcement unit within the city that deals with, bylaws across the city. Yes, there are challenges within the city when it comes to, illegal occupying. Of course, we are mindful of the PI Act, and that's always the legality that takes place, where our officers are going out to enforce the law, but once the structures are put in place, there are certain things that they are limited about, or they have to, try and enforce the law. But when structures gets put up and there's certain things that's maybe implemented, or it looks like a structure that's already fully occupied, it can become a challenge for the actual enforcement. And of course, the city has to get a review and take these things to courts in order to override it, or to try and get the people maybe removed, especially when it comes to private land or city-owned land. That is the challenge across the city, and we are sitting with various challenges, but with the amount of staff and of course with other stakeholders, we try to put this integrated approach. And what Director Roberts mentioned is we've got this Tuesday, Thursday and weekly meetings where we discuss the challenges, that how can we deal with it, what is the hotspot areas with various units, whether it's a housing unit, anti-land evasion, traffic, the police, in order to deal with these problematic areas. And of course, then the operational plans is normally put in. Just to touch on the 24 hours, yes, we are a 24-hour service, Honourable Minister. We worked 24 hours. We got 25% of our staff because of the 12-hour shift system. And at any given stage, we've got the amount of personnel. I would like to have more personnel in order to render, equitable service. But obviously, when it comes to the day-to-day, what we've got, we also do our soft border approaches within our directorate. The relationship or the coordination with the Metro Police versus South African Police Services, I can proudly say that there's a good working relationship from area level, station level, interaction with the management. The relationship is good. There's no challenges on the ground. There's no fightings on the ground. There's meetings being called. One of the advantages we got is also our TMC, which is our coordinated, we call it the fishbowl. We've got all the services there. We've got even the representatives of the police. We've got various other emergency, ambulance, fire. So in the event of an emergency at any short notice, we can get together and do a discussion or implement a plan. We've got disaster management, which is close by. So yes, relationships is important. And the officers on the ground, they do have, these type of discussions on a weekly, daily basis with the station commissioners in order to deal with the challenges. And we are called upon on numerous times in order to assist when there are certain red flags in particular areas. So I have no qualms with the relationships between the South African Police Services and the Metro Police, including from boots on the ground to the top management. Minister Christians, yes, we've got 565 officers on the ground. I would love to have more officers. The LEAP is a program that has been started recently over the years. This is something that the city, in partnership with provincial government. There are certain training that they have to do in order to, because of the current challenges out there. They also have to meet certain requirements when it comes to the training, in line with the SAQA requirement 377224, and they also train in various facets of, peace officer status. So there's some of them that works various shifts, but it's also a force multiplier in order to deal with the problems. It's normally around about just over 6 months in order to train these officers, and they go through various training, whether it's on-the-job training, it's also at the college, theory, practical type of training, how to handle firearms, and various other training that's provided. But at the end of the day, it's about using the resources collectively with the existing traffic, law enforcement and metro in order to make an impact because of the challenges out there where the communities are suffering. The law enforcement officers, most of them are working 24 hours. The good old days, Minister Christians, they don't go home at 6 o'clock in the evening. They do work a shift system. They got the rapid response in various units that deals with these type of things. And of course, when we need them, we do rope them in when it comes to challenges. The deputy that you spoke about, I'm quite proud to say that she's been promoted. She's now the chief of Nelson Mandela, Metro Police Chief. So we hope to fill that position as soon as possible. Deputy Faro was as part of our management team. The high rise of how do we deal with these things with our city-owned infrastructure? Obviously, it's a challenge that part of our daily meetings and discussions, we obviously look at our infrastructure in order to make sure that our infrastructure is also protected. But this is all goes part of the weekly meetings that has been identified, whether it's an early warning system, whether it's information that's coming through from the police normally passes on to us. So we deal with these type of things at these meetings. The normal meeting once a week or meeting on a irregular or a monthly basis has changed within our environment, within our directorate. We are meeting more often. We have a consolidated approach where there's various stakeholders when dealing with these things, from health to housing to cleansing. So it's an integrated approach and tasking people in order to make it work. So yes, our infrastructure, whether it's our arterial routes, our buildings, the protection of our buildings, and also to make sure that people are also safe out there is important. We spoke about the targets for our firearms. I'm responsible for all the firearms within the 3 services. That's the metro. That's a total of close to 4,000. The number of staff within the metro police, I think I've touched on that one. It is a concern. With our business plan, we should have been more than that compared to what we got. But be mindful that within Cape Town, we've got the 3 services compared to the other municipalities who has the combined services. So if you add up the other municipalities which you touched on, they have an average of about 4,000 to 6,000. Johannesburg have about just over 4,000, but that is all 3 services combined reporting to the chief. Here in Cape Town, we've got the 3 services separately with chiefs reporting to our executive director. The relationship between the LEAP, the officers obviously, when it comes to command and control, when it comes to dealing with one common purpose, we try to focus on getting the job done in order to render service. The relationship is obviously there. Many times we call upon our LEAP when we have to do some programs, whether it's in our specialized units. So the LEAP, we do have a relationship with law enforcement, and if I have to ask the chief of law enforcement to render some officers in order to deal with certain issues, we do have it, and they do assist us as we go along. I haven't had any officers going from being a Metro Police to a LEAP. because the leap starts at a certain, they have various T grades, so it's basically an entry level. I do believe that our officers they are there to, within the Metro Police environment, they are obviously what would like to render services, the successes speaks, and if we should get more officers on the ground, it will certainly assist us as we go along. But with the city's approach, with this integrated approach, with the additional leap and that, in order to deal with, with the challenges out there. Your CCTV cameras, you spoke about certain areas. Yes, just to give you an indication, on a daily basis, we get a feedback, various stakeholders get feedback on what is happening out on the ground. One of the major challenges we have is about the vandalism of our cameras. As we're speaking now, just before I came, I just checked the stats. Kailicha has 16 cameras on and 20 off. Cameras in Kailicha is one, and Philippi is one of the major challenges where we have vandalism. Fiber is constantly broken. We're looking at creating a process where these cameras or the installation or these mechanism could be maybe more on council properties to prevent Prazo or any type of, where there's an opportunity for vandalism and power, and of course our network issues. So we've got cameras across. We monitor these cameras. We do have response teams in order to deal with these things. But vandalism is a challenge. We've seen when they do dig up these type of things, it might only be a few meters of copper, but it affects various cameras across the board when these things get damaged. So there's constant ways that we are looking at in order to rather install our cameras on our own properties in order to prevent this. Just to touch base briefly, there is also a CCTV camera rollout plan for the 2021 to 2026. So these are things where we've got a 5-year plan which talks about where do we do it, how do we do it, and of course the interaction with the stakeholders, whether it's the station commissioners at various police stations. You mentioned about Nyanga and Kluifontein. This is also on the list where we interact with them to ask them what is their challenges. Tell us where can we use our resources more optimally at the end of the day, because we also look at the relevant information that is obtained from the officials regarding the top 20 crime hotspots. So these are things that we work upon in order to deal with cameras. Cameras is a methodology or a footprint that can be able to assist us, but obviously we have to move. We have to constantly monitor because it can, shift the crime as we go along. I mentioned about the amount of staff compared to Johannesburg and that. Yes, they do have more than currently with the Metro Police, but of course that is the combine of all 3 services. Yeah, that's from the tampering. I mentioned about that. I think that's a challenge. We've seen the certain infrastructure on Praza, on the railway lines, and of course some of our infrastructure is also on Praza land, and these things get damaged, and we constantly looking at new innovations in order to make sure that our cameras don't, because the last thing we want in cameras is, on downtime. It takes some time again to improve it. Also, just last but not least, our operating costs in order to get the cameras up and running. Just for the 2020-2021 financial year, we had a plan of 9.8 million set aside for in the event cameras is maybe damaged, and we spent over 50 million rand just for cameras that was damaged during this financial year. So it clearly shows the need for copper and certain challenges where people see there's an opportunity, and of course that breaks the camera footprint, and we have to go in there. We have to provide assistance to the technicians in order to get that thing up and running. So that is a concern, the amount of funds that has been spent in order to deal with replacing and fixing these cameras. Sometimes these cameras are not only damaged, it's also satellite and that. Of course, we wouldn't want our cameras to be a disadvantage for the community out there. Chair, that's in a nutshell.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe just some feedback from my side to Minister Marie regarding to land invasion. Chair, since January 2020, there was a major threat in terms of land invaded within the metropole. And it was not only city land, it was national land, provincial land, city land, as well as private land. I can just give you the stats from January 2020. A total of incidents occurred within the metropole, 14,557 incidents of land invasions occurred within the city of Cape Town from the 1st of January 2020. Then structures that we demolished, where we, and I need to indicate this to you, that you need to act immediately in order to prevent it. You need to act when there's counter-spoliation. Otherwise, when that structure is erected and it is occupied, you're losing your ground on that. And the total structures that we demolished from the 1st of January 2020 was 68,110. That's 68,110 structures that we demolished. Makeshift structures is the tented camps, homeless structures at the time before the Disaster Management Act kicked in was a total of 5,557. Occupied structures that we lost to the various land parcels, should it be national, and when I'm talking about national, I'm talking about Eskom, Praza, those parastatals land that were lost, as well as city land, as well as private. We lost to occupied structures 23,873. So if you're looking at the average of 5 persons per structure, then we are talking about nearly 100,000 people that needs to be relocated when an eviction order have to kick in after the Disaster Management Act will get to level 0. Arrest relating to land invasions is a total of 195 arrests, and court orders that were obtained in terms of parcels of land, 106 court orders. I just signed off yesterday legal applications for eviction orders in terms of, Chair, we've got nearly a total of over 500 hotspot tented camps within the metropole. And I'm talking about tented camps when you are having these tents on the road reserves next to the N1 or the N2. I'm not talking about the land invasions itself, but I signed off yesterday 241 applications to get eviction orders should we, the Disaster Management Act, get to a point of 0. How do we coordinate it? Since the start of the massive land invasions in January 2020, we immediately start to activate Metro Police Traffic Law Enforcement, as well as the South African Police Services. They've got an obligation, the South African Police Services, in terms of National Instruction 7 of 2017, to act immediately in terms of a land invasion. And we don't even use the bylaw. We use the criminal law in terms of the Trespass Act to act immediately. But what we've got there is that most of those cases did not even end up in court because there was a problem with the prosecution and the investigation of those particular cases. And we are currently busy with a dashboard to present it to the Provincial Commissioner and to the MPA to ask what happened to these particular trespass cases and why are we not having any prosecution on those particular cases. We started off with a coordinating committee on a daily basis, 7 days a week from that particular time, and we coordinated with the anti-land invasion unit as well as from human settlements, as well as from province with the Red Ants, private security, to protect all the parcels of land we went into discussions with the parastatals in order to assist them, specifically in Browns Farm. There's about nearly 5,000 structures between the railway lines, as well as in the noon, where these lives of these people are actually in danger. And you need to get eviction orders to redeploy them to a better piece of land that is surface. So in terms of land invasions, we are really attending to that. I'm chairing that meeting myself now on a Tuesday, Thursday, and on a Saturday, where we identified all the hotspot areas within the city. I can tell you we've got 4 areas, area north, south, and east and west. And in those particular areas, we identified the hotspots of the land invasions. We are monitoring that. We are trying to get equipment like drones and eye in the sky to particularly focus on these areas of land invasions. We've got 78 housing projects currently within the city, of which half of them are currently under threat of invasion. When you surface a particular piece of land, there's attempts to immediately invade that as soon as there's water and light to that particular. And those residents that were standing in queue of getting those particular land then loses their land as well. So the city put a lot of emphasis on land invasions at the moment to prevent it, to deal with it. We've got after-hour operations, walkabouts in monitoring systems in place to deal with it. And on a daily basis, we are having operations. So that is just in terms of the land invasions. With regarding to the coordination between SAPS and Metro Police and the other units, I can indicate, Chair, that we are on various forums. Myself and the Chief are representing the city on the provincial joints, and the provincial joints have various committees with regarding to a murder reduction committee, the transport committee, the school safety committee, the anti-gang priority committee, the social and cultural ill priority committee, the border immigration, rural safety, substance abuse, priority crimes, and service delivery in terms of land invasion. We are all coordinated with the South African Police on those particular subcommittees with the police, and there's really good cooperation. We are also having weekly meetings in terms of COVID-19 enforcement, and then we are also on the extortion priority committee with the police. There's a sound and healthy relationship between the city, Metro Police Traffic and law enforcement and other units within safety and security in terms of that. Law enforcement work office hours, I just want to comment. I can just indicate to Mr. Christians that every single LEAP member that is currently out there, except for the reaction team, are currently working shifts in the areas. I can indicate to you that in Bishop Lavis on a shift, we've got 10 members and 2 inspectors. So it's 4 shifts, so there would be then 40 members and 8 inspectors. In Delft, we've got 18 and 2 inspectors. Nyanga, 18 and 2 inspectors on a shift. In Hanover Park, Philippi, 10 members and 2 inspectors on a shift. In Mfuleni, 16 and 2 inspectors on a shift. In Khayelitsha, 17 and 3 inspectors on a shift. Harare, 17 and 2 inspectors on the shift. Kraaifontein, 18 and 2 inspectors on the shift. Mitchell's Plain, 15 and 3 inspectors on the shift. And then we've got the reaction unit at Guguletu. Myself and General Brandt, Mr. Brandt now linking directly with the Premier's office and with DOCS. We are coordinating the deployment of LEAP on a weekly basis to look at their efficiency, their accountability with regarding to their roles, as well as their success report. I can just, if you can allow me, since the February 2020 up until October 2021, the successes with regarding to the LEAP members in those particular stations, they confiscated a total of 108 firearms within those stations. That's right, Minister. Ammunition 773, Total arrest made 3,688 arrests, and that is part of an integrated approach with those particular station commanders and the visible heads in those particular police stations. And then they did 11,750 house searches, suspects that were searched, Shabin inspections, 4,438, and we are monitoring the lead members constantly. So they are working 24-hour shifts. Then, Minister, we've got a rapid response unit in law enforcement that are operating on a 24-hour basis, and they attend to all the service requests as with Metro Police. And then we've got about 8 base stations within the Metro Police where law enforcement is also operating on a 24-hour basis. We want to get everybody in terms of a 24-hour system, and every single new recruit that's been employed by the law enforcement, by the City of Cape Town's contract, stated clearly that they will work a 24-hour system. The high-risk areas, Minister, due to our integration with the South African Police Services, we identified all the high-risk stations within, or the hotspot stations, or the high-crime areas of the South African Police. There's Operation Vutuhave within the police system that identified all the murder stations within the Metropole. In terms of our own service request with regarding to bylaws, traffic, we determined by our service request where in the areas and with the EPIC system we received most requests in terms of certain bylaws or traffic contraventions, or we're linking up directly with the Metro Police in terms of the crime statistics, and we determined those particular hotspot areas. And part of our operational approach with SAPS is in terms of joint operations with them, and then, as Chief LaRue indicated, integrated operations with Metro Police traffic and law enforcement also in that high-risk areas. Just the infrastructure within the city. I just chaired a meeting yesterday with regarding to the infrastructure. We established now a theft and loss and damage priority committee within the city, where each of the 11 directorates take accountability for every single asset that is getting lost, damaged, or stolen within the city, in order to account for that and to see what is the financial expenditure at the end of the day. And then we also see if we are busy with a replacement of the so-called private security with law enforcement members in terms of our assets. Then just with regarding to the relation between LEAP and Metro Police, Minister Kama or Chief Kama, at the moment there's a difference in the pay with regarding to a Metro Police member and a law enforcement member. There's differences with regarding to accountability. The law enforcement officer is not appointed in terms of the Police Act. But Metro Police is appointed in terms, and that is where the difference comes. But there was also a lot of powers being given by the Minister of Justice to the law enforcement, and we also applied for more powers in order to assist the South African Police in fighting crime regarding this. And I can give you feedback and also the documentation in terms of the powers. I did a previous presentation to the legislature with regarding to the powers of law enforcement, and I can make it available again to the Secretariat. And then that was the joint LEAP program. I can just indicate to the chairman, when we are operating in the LEAP station areas, it is not a question that it is only LEAP. When there is a request that the Metro Police or the traffic is needed as part of that joint operation in these LEAP, in the different LEAP station areas, we co-op Metro Police as well as the traffic to form part of that integrated joint approach with the police in that particular areas. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Before I think one of the advantages that Cape Town has is this is the leap is the first to happen. And it's initiatives that made a difference. Because we don't see them as a threat, we see them as a force multiplier. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be having another rollout of another additional lead members, and I think it will be able to assist, the problematic or hotspot areas as we go along, leading towards our festive season and beyond. I think that is very important. It's something new. It's a new initiative that started in Cape Town, and like our neighborhood watches and various other programs, like cadets and all this type of thing. So, yeah, it's exciting times, and I think it's something that we should look at and embrace in order to deal with crime and grime.
Thank you so much, Director Roberts, as well as Chief Leroux. Thank you, Mary Ann. Members, Chief, we will be, after this meeting, members will request certain information. I would then also want to add the camera rollout that was adopted by the PC in the city. If you are then able to provide us with that, the areas as well as the amount. I do note that you have mentioned Kraaifontein and Nyanga, but I'm aware that Mfuleni and Delft and Mitchell Springs is also included in that one. Any further additional requests for information, members will then after our engagement. I see one hand online. If there is any follow-up, but before I ask the follow-up, I am going to look members in the eyes. Members, it is now 19 minutes past. May I request that we continue for an extra half an hour in terms of the program? Would that be in order with everyone? Because we have 10 minutes remaining.
We will finish in 10 minutes by talking short.
Okay, thank you. Then I will give members a minute each for any questions. After this, we will then request information via email to be sent to C. Matthews. But let me first bring in our colleagues that is online. I see member Wendy Philander and then member Gillian Bosman in that order, and then each member will get an additional minute.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm not sure whether you can see my eyes, but thank you for the opportunity, Chairperson. Chair, I wish to welcome the presentation that was made, and Chair, also allow me to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to the women and the men, together with law enforcement, for the tremendous work that they are doing and standing in the gap where the South African Police Service is failing our communities dismally, and that is a given fact, Chairperson. Chair, at this day and age, our nation are confronted with load shedding. We go to bed with load shedding, we wake up with load shedding, and we share the great frustration with a greater nation, and we know who to thank for that. Chairperson, I would like to know whether the department can give us an indication whether crime has increased during these load shedding periods. Also in my constituency area, especially to infrastructure, municipal infrastructure, during cable theft, during those load shedding periods, but also other crimes. Are there any indication that those crimes have been increasing during the load shedding period? Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you so much for sticking to your 1 minute. Member Bosman.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, in a previous engagement, I think it was our last engagement with the South African Police Service, the Western Cape Police Commissioner indicated to us that they've got staff available, and I think it was crime intelligence officers available to process camera footage from cameras that the City of Cape Town controls, because SAPS admitted they don't actually own any cameras themselves. Can the city leadership provide us with a breakdown of how many cases have been solved through using those crime intelligence officers to process camera footage? And does such a partnership exist between SAPS and the City of Cape Town? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Bosman. I see Member Marais, Christians, Wenger, and then Kama in that order.
Thank you so much. Ek wil net vra, die metro polisie, u sê daar is 'n rapid response nommer. Kan ons 'n nommer kry? Die mense kan bel as hulle aksie nodig het, dan wil ek sê, daar is 'n Wes-Kaapse polisiekommissaris wat rapporteer aan die nasionale kommissaris, wat rapporteer aan die nasionale minister. Wat is die hiërargie binne die metropolisie? Het julle 'n kommissaris, 'n Wes-Kaapse metrokommissaris, wat kan rapporteer aan die premier? Ons moet onthou, ons is nie 'n vlak van regering nie, maar 'n sfeer. So wat hulle ook al het daarbo, kan ons het hierso. En ek wil net die kommentaar daarop hoor van wat is die vlakke hierso. Stop hy nou by u of meneer Leroux, of is daar nog 'n vlak wat u aan my, ek sal graag hoor, en dan wil ek hoor, hoe ver is ons met die highway patrolman? Highway patrolman het ons hier besluit oor, ja, dat hulle oor munisipale grense kan beweeg op die highways en nie net hier binne in die metro nie.
Thank you so much.
Meneer,
9 seconds and going.
ja, ek moet nou nog 5 sekondes. Hy antwoord die vrae wat hy maar moet antwoord. Ek wil net geweet het, ja, die highway patrolman, die rapid response nommer en of ons ook 'n kommissaris nodig het hier in die Weskaap. Dankie.
Thank you, Member Christians.
Nee, JP moet wy. Nee, JP.
Okay. No, I don't think my question was answered because just the point, this unit is small, the Metro Police, and now with the LEAP officers getting more and more powers, is there not a duplication of functions? That is what I'm saying, because I understand when under the mayorship of Member Marais, 2000, there was a need for a Metro Police, but now with all the powers given to the LEAP officers, do you have a role to play? Because for me, there's a duplication of functions when it comes to law enforcement, traffic, and now with the LEAP officers getting no longer just law enforcement officers, but now have a peace officer status. You have that broad powers, and you're asking more and more powers for LEAP officers. So can't we talk about amalgamation of some sort, so that you want to have one command structure to combat crime? So that is the question that I want answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Christians. Member Kama.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mine is a follow-up on the issue of CCTV cameras. I don't know if maybe the leadership that is in front of us now would know, but I think I saw it even somewhere else where the Kailicha Development Forum, and I attended one of their workshops where they were presenting on this plan for cameras in Kailicha. And part of that plan, and they were having even engagements with the then political head of the department, Honorable J.P. Smith, where it even has an 8-kilometer fire detention, different cameras that were there, and they were looking to partner with the city. So I just wanted to understand if will that form part of this rollout plan, or have you? There's no discussion of that sort. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, members. To the City of Cape Town, as well as DOCS that is represented here today, what I will allow at this stage is that I will allow for closing remarks. We might not cover all the questions. Then what we will do is that members will also submit additional requests for information. But I have seen that the Chief has noted the amount of questions, and then it will also be circulated back to you from our procedural officer. And if we can then get those responses back, I see the Chief Whip of the Provincial Parliament is sitting here today, and I will engage her regarding further engagements in the new year with Metro Police, so that we can absorb the information that will be sent back on the many questions. We do want to foster the relationship and see how we not only exercise our duty, but create a safer Western Cape. So I will afford the Chief as well as Director Roberts a minute each as well. I know that members are extremely busy as well, and your side, but I do want to stick for time today.
I think, thank you in the interest of time, we will look at the amount of questions here and, formulate a consolidated response. I think that's important. But just with a minute to go, the load shedding, I think this has always been a challenge right across the country. And at the end of the day, we will know shortly, has it improved, has a crime maybe gone down, or there's been a spike of crime. But with this, take into account the challenges we are looking at, trying to be visible. The time slots is given to us, and the hotspots, and we've got our discussions at our weekly meetings and daily meetings. This is discussed ongoing. How can we be more of a preventative measure? Early in the morning, late afternoon, where there could be a challenge. So there is constantly looking at creating that visible. Our staff are also driving around, with the blue lights on in order to create the visible impact during the day. And of course, most important is the traffic management to make sure that there's free flow of traffic. But certainly we will engage with the SAPS to find out if there's been a spike of crimes over that period. The reporting line, Honourable Marais, I report to the acting ED or the executive director. In essence, I should report to the city manager, but I report to the acting ED, which reports to the city manager at this stage. So in line with the South African Police Act, obviously I also liaise with the local provincial commissioner. But there is discussions as we go along. Yeah, there's regular discussions. I have no problems. We do interact with the commissioner. He do invite us to meetings and things like that, and we do. We also have a chiefs forum where we meet various chiefs, and we also meet, now and again we meet the national commissioner when it comes to certain issues from the policing side. But just for the reporting line at this stage, I report to the executive director, and then of course I also have in line with our organogram, to the city manager. It's Vincent Botto now. He's acting. He's replaced Richard Bosman, who was our original executive director at the time. But the acting executive director at this stage is Vincent Botto.
Thank you so much, Chief. Is there any? Or you covered your side?
And the telephone number, I don't know if Director Roberts has got it.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe just quickly from my side, in terms of load shedding, I'm sitting and I'm part and parcel of the weekly meeting with the South African Police, where they indicate to us the crime, specifically from their crime intelligence. And I think it's a bit early to determine what sort of impact do the load shedding have. But in terms of the city, we are focusing on those areas according to the schedules with regarding to our deployment in that particular areas to have visibility during load shedding in that areas, as the Chief indicated, with blue light patrols. And then we also police the intersections according to the problematic intersections in terms of traffic regarding our deployment. And then we're coordinating it with SAP's crime intelligence. In terms of the camera footage, we made it available to SAPS. We actually would like them to get more involved, and we requested from their side in terms of the Safer City project that is currently driven by the South African Police. We requested them to have their analyst as part of our deployment within the TMC, so that we can make those video footage immediately available to them. Their detectives do approach Metro Police with regarding to cases and to determine if there's footage available. And there was a success. There were 2 or 3 cases with CCTV footage available, specifically with regarding to gang shootings, where they were convicted in terms of video footage available to that. The response number, we've got the 480-7700 number, 480-7700 number, or we've got the 107 call center like 10111, we've got 107. You just dial 107 and from the landline, and you will be directly in contact with our control center, or if you are not getting through there, 480-7700. With regarding to the highway patrol, all right, sorry, Minister, 480-7700. Not at the moment, Minister. We are working towards that particular number in the 107 center to get the toll-free number. I will.
Acting ED, may I ask that further questions are then answers are then relayed in the consolidated reply that we will be getting from the City of Cape Town, but also members may I encourage from 2:30 today for the next 24 hours, 36 maximum, if we are able to get your written request for information or questions to be circulated directly to Wasim Matthews, our procedural officer. Thank you so much to the Chief for your attendance here today. ED, is there anything that Mr. Brandt, General Brandt, would want to say at this time?
All that I want to say, Mr. Chair and honourable members, is I can testify to the good cooperation there is. You know, we've been working all the years in silos. You can see how there's cooperation, especially if you go to stations. And then what we're trying to do is with the area-based approach to actually get this more on the ground in all the different areas where LEAP is deployed. And in December, they will go to the last of the 10 top murder stations in the province, because that's actually what they're about. And then just lastly, the LEAP, we must all remember, is appointed on contract, where the Metro Police is not on the same, and the LEAP is appointed in terms of Section 334 of the Criminal Procedure Act, and as Director Roberts said, the Metro Police in terms of the Police Act, Act 60.
Thank you so much, General, for your input as well. Members, our next meeting is on Friday morning for the Western Cape Liquor Authority for the interviews. Our procedural officer has emailed the relevant documentation to you, and I trust that we will be able to wrap up that part of the process. But once again, thank you for your attendance, members. Thank you for being here. Even though we are limited for time today, we will be engaging. I've been on a number of ride-alongs, and I will encourage members to also approach the city in that regard to complete the documentation. But also we will see and speak to the Chief Whip again regarding oversight to the control room, so we are able to get a deeper sense of what is happening in the CCTV control room as well. So members that is online, those that are viewing on YouTube, thank you so much. HOD, thank you for your attendance here today. Thank you for that we are covered by General Brandt here. Before I say goodbye, HOD, it might be wrong of me to not ask you for comment.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and good afternoon to you, the members, as well as the City of Cape Town. I have noted all the input and the comments from my side as well, and from the side of the department, just to commend the city on the hard work and their commitment, but then also just to confirm the very good working relationships we have across the 3 spheres of government, including the SAPs, the acting ED Botto, myself, as well as the PC meet every 2 weeks, and it's for us to be able to achieve the objectives of the Western Cape Safety Plan and make the Western Cape safer. Thank you, Chair.
HOD, thank you so much, members. Everyone, we have catering at the back. I got a note here that I would encourage you, please, to make use of the catering. It is COVID compliant. We wouldn't want it to go to waste. So once again, baie dankie, thank you. And everyone that is online, thank you for your attendance here today. Please keep well until we meet again. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.